What if I told you that the same corporations cutting DEI programs in America are also the ones profiting off of Africa's resources? What if I told you that Black communities worldwide, whether in the US, the Caribbean, or Africa, are being systematically locked out of economic power? Tonight, we are exposing the global war on Black wealth, how corporations, policymakers, and economic power players collaborate to keep us financially weak. This isn't just about race. This is about power. And joining me in this critical discussion is someone who's been on the front lines of economic empowerment, Darren Britt. Welcome to the show, Darren.
Thank you for having me, Peter. I think this is a conversation that's well overdue. I think it's critical now in the time that we're in to have these conversations and to kind of amplify the message so more people can tap in and create some critical mass for us to move forward.
Thank you. And before we dive in, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This is a conversation they don't want you to hear. Comment below, who do you think controls Black wealth? Let's get started.
So in terms of controlling Black wealth, I think it's kind of a combination of things. And I think it's more of influencing Black wealth. And I guess to start out, some of the things that I think about is what we've spoken about in the past in terms of, for instance, this day and age, the DEI, the eliminating the jobs and the opportunities that were available that were fought through the civil rights era. I recently had a conversation with somebody regarding that. I remember there was an incident where some Black FBI agents were refused a meal, or they ran into problems at a Denny's restaurant. And subsequently, in order for Denny's to kind of do a reach out campaign to open up opportunities, they opened up more franchises for Black entrepreneurs. So part of the DEI initiative wasn't just for jobs, it was for opportunities that were previously not available to for wealthy Blacks to be considered for. So we have car dealerships, we have CEO types of positions. So the opportunities were more prevalent with the DEI initiative and affirmative action.
Thank you, Darren. Let's talk about some of the obvious things, some other things that are obvious. DEI programs are being wiped out. In 2023, companies like Walmart, Amazon, and Google were touting DEI initiative. Fast forward to 2025, and those same programs are being quietly cut. What's really happening?
It's more of a food chain mindset that's always been here in terms of the demographics that are obviously shifting in the United States, where minorities and people of color will be the majority. So it's created this level of, and it's always been there to maintain a level of superiority amongst other groups. So it's always been here, but now it's more, I guess, critical for them now because they're seeing the demographic shift in the United States. And we're seeing the repercussions of that now with these mass deportations. Now, I'm all for people that aren't here legally. That's important to come here under the right circumstances, but it looks like it's kind of going way overboard from some of the reports that we're seeing right now.
Exactly. And what's wild is that while they are cutting DEI here in the US, these same corporations are still making billions off of Africa's resources, diamonds, gold, oil, you name it. Darren, can you break it down a little bit, how these power players operate on both fronts?
Sure. So some of the research that's been done and some of the books that have been produced speak to this period of imperialization that's and neo-colonization, whereby multinational corporations are kind of given carte blanche to go into these countries in the South and Central America and Africa and extract the resources and minerals for pennies on the dollar. And most recently, for instance, in Africa, not only were they extracting the minerals, but they were profiting to the extent where the proceeds were kept in the banks in France, as an example, and the people in power in Africa had to request to get their money back. They had to make a request and to get their own money, and it had to actually be approved to get their funds released. And I think in terms of the per kilogram, I forget the exact amount. I think it was somewhere in terms of like the equivalent of like 80 cents, but yet they were selling it for $200 a kilogram. And you can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but then that money was basically the profits were all kept outside of Africa.
Yes, I think what you're talking about is something that Dr. Araucana often talks about, and that is the pact for the continuation of colonization, where when the French left Africa as colonialists, they stayed on as influences and required the African countries to sign agreements that gave the French the first right of refusal for any resources that were discovered in the 14 West African countries that they had formerly colonized. They maintained their armies. They required the African countries to deposit their money in French treasuries, and the way that the Africans were only allowed to borrow some of it back and at a commercial interest rate when they did that. You know, Dr. Araucana talks about this, and what she did. Of course, she recommended a book that both of us have read, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And this book talks about how all companies, this is all about energy, worldwide, would go in and they would create debt traps for unsuspecting countries. And as a result of those debt traps, the colonizers, the Western powers, would end up being in control of the economies of poor countries all around the world. Let's continue a little bit and see if we can't explain to our listening audience a little bit more about how corporations manipulate nations and use these debt traps and dependency to remain in control, although former colonization has ended. Family, this is the same game, just a different battlefield. They roll back DEI in America, and they virtually steal the resources of Africa. And in the end, the multinational corporations end up controlling the wealth to the exclusion of Black people. They take our labor, they take our resources, and they give us nothing. They end up with all of the money and the good life that they live. Continue, Darren. What else is it that you want to relate to us about how things like this continue to shortchange Black people?
Well, I think part of it in some sense was kind of self-inflicted by us. I mean, I've been reflecting on some of the studies between, and I guess the friction between, for instance, some of our early thought leaders and heroes, Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, um, and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. So from my understanding and my opinion, you can kind of chime in, I guess, on the thought process is that, for instance, Booker T. Washington wanted to focus on agriculture and tech training in order for Blacks to advance. And he was not necessarily concerned with integration. He was okay with us being in our own communities, creating our own businesses and our own jobs subsequently, and our own educating our own people, which is similar to what Malcolm X was talking about. From what I understand, W.E.B. Du Bois was focused on education in terms of the intellect and integration. And that's where they had, I guess, strategically their differences, which was similar from what I understand with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And it's not to say that as a culture, we only did one thing. We know throughout history in the United States, we did have communities that were advancing and moving forward in terms of the things that they, W.E.B. Du Bois, Malcolm X and Booker T. Washington were interested in. And that created some of our tragedies in the United States. We look at Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma. We can look at Wilmington. We can look at various atrocities that occurred here. And it was that level of jealousy to see what some people deemed as an inferior race to advance without the opportunities that were afforded to other people, like the Homestead Act. So after slavery, we definitely didn't have any bootstraps to pull ourselves up by. Our ancestors didn't, but yet they still achieved significant development and growth. So some of the control that we're talking about, to me, is a little self-imposed, but you can kind of speak to that in terms of where we were at that time, because I know you were part of the civil rights era and your participation in that era.
Well, you're telling my age, but yes, I tell people that I was that's a BIT player in the civil rights movement. And it's interesting because we were obviously involved in an age-old battle. And our main objective during the first civil rights movement was the end of Jim Crow, legal segregation. And we achieved that by and large. However, the bigger struggle is the one that we are in now, the one that we failed to achieve during the first civil rights movement, and that was economic liberation. And you're talking about Du Bois and Garvey and Booker T. Washington, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. All of them recognized our need for economic empowerment. Of course, W.E.B. Du Bois was really the founder of the Pan-African movement, followed by Marcus Garvey, and all of the other Black thought leaders, by and large, recognized the fact that for Blacks in America and Africa to actually be free, and free means have political, economic, and culture independence, that we had to have worldwide unity. And so although we've been fighting this fight for well over 100 years, hundreds of years in reality, we're still in the middle of it. And of course, that's why today we are focusing in on the enormous spending power of Black consumers, with the idea that we plan to use that spending power, leverage that spending power in such a way that we can gain a foothold in the economy, in the world's economy, because they're 40%, nearly 40% of the world's natural resources are in Africa. 60% of the arable land is in Africa. So we have the natural resources, we have the people power, but we have not united in such a way that we've been able to achieve the economic objectives that I like to tell people. Of course, I've told you that we're really in the second civil rights movement. And this civil rights movement is different from our first civil rights movement, in that this time we recognize the importance of fighting until we achieve economic independence. So with that being said, go ahead, Darren. You were highlighting certain aspects of what it is we're involved in, how we got here, and where we're going. You want to continue?
Sure, Peter. So yeah, the strategic differences that I guess the thought leaders and heroes of the past had, I guess, are ever so more important at this stage of the game, kind of what you alluded to. And I like that phrase, the next civil rights movement is the economic liberation of Africa and the unity of all of us. Now, not everybody is going to be on board. We see some of the friction online, people that kind of, they don't get it, but I think it's our job to kind of add to this this movement, this momentum. And I love what I'm seeing now. We're at a stage in the world right now, we can have these devices, these cell phones, and you can connect with a vlogger on the continent, whether they're in Tanzania, South Africa, Ghana, and people in the UK. We see development taking place. So it's a wonderful time to be in, and just to try to make people understand the importance of where we are right now, the importance of uniting as much as possible as a people, so we can leverage like you just alluded to, one of the richest places on the planet right now, not only mineral and resource rich, but individual human being rich. It's the youngest population on the planet right now. We are hearing and seeing other cultures that get it, that are going there and setting up organizations and networks. I know one of the things that Dr. Arikana talks about is that other cultures have it set up. For instance, if somebody is of German descent, the network that they may have in Zambia or Namibia, they'll have a German family, for instance, and they'll connect them with another German family that's on the continent, staying in a German-owned hotel, and things of that nature. So the opportunity is definitely there. It's just a matter of galvanizing our brain power and our resources in order to move in that direction as well.
Thank you. This conversation reminds me of activities that I've been following in the news. Of course, I'm big on YouTube. I think that it carries a lot of information that we as Black people need to be aware of. And over the last week or so, I've been following the self-driving the self-powered automobile that was developed by a self-taught engineer in Zimbabwe. And apparently the technology is a threat to the trillions of dollars energy industry. And a lot of the commentary is saying that the energy industry may very well be the center of the energy industry, maybe being relocated to Africa, with Black people having an inordinate amount of influence over how the energy industry is transacted transacted from here forward. And I just think it's just an amazing thing. And the other thing that I think you would be interested in is I talked with a tax lawyer. Her name is Melissa Muhammad, and she runs a business entitled Black and Global. And she has Black professionals all over the world and thousands networking to get Black businesses in the diaspora to hire Black professionals in Africa at a very competitive price. But what the objective is to help network the African opportunities with the diaspora, and at the same time build relationships with African professionals that can help us grow our traditional businesses into international opportunities. Mm-hmm. And I did an interview with her, and either it has been published or it's being published, and I will link it into this description. And I just urge all of our listeners to pay attention to the new energy developments going on in Africa, and also to Black and Global, because these are ideas that are necessary for us to understand if we're ever going to achieve economic liberation. Let me make a couple of more comments, and then I'm going to ask you to give us some closing comments and move on. But family, if you're tired of being exploited, drop a fire emoji in the comments. Darren, let's hit them with some real solutions. How do we shift this power back? How do we actually leave our listeners with ideas on what they can do to help build the Africa we want, to help achieve economic liberation? Any suggestions?
Well, I know what I'm focused on personally. I invest in real estate here, trying to build up my passive income so I'll be able to do more on the continent. I have I just got started in e-commerce, and I'm trying to build up that end of the business. So I'm focused on multiple business streams, and ideally business streams where I can pretty much be a digital nomad, where I don't have to, I'm location independent, so to speak. So I think that's one of the things that we can do, because business and entrepreneurship has to be first and foremost, because jobs are not something that you're going to be looking for if you're looking to actually live on the continent. But global economic trade lines, what I want to do in the e-commerce space is to have products that I can sell anywhere in the world. Currently, I'm just doing some stuff on Amazon, but I actually want to be able to expand that out to get wholesale relationships with products that are available on the continent. You hear stories all the time, people from other cultures, that the shea butter, things like that. Matter of fact, there's another person that specializes in business building on the continent, Dr. Harnett. And she mentioned somebody in her group that actually had a product that was on Shark Tank. And it's actually in one of the major retailers in the United States, Sephora. So I guess she changed the packaging to put it in a more luxurious type of packaging. And I'm not sure what the ingredients are, but it's selling for a high price point, because that's a high-end store. So you can have shea butter that's sold in a grocery store in a plastic tub, or you can have a product that's developed that's more attractive and it gets a higher price point. So those are some of the things that can be done, basically learning what types of products you can invest in to become a distributor. So that's pretty much what I'm focused on.
Okay, let me add a couple of ideas to our discussion, because one of the things that we recognize is that for uh, us as a people to achieve the kind of economic liberation that we are seeking, we have to support one another. We have to hire one another. We have to build companies together. We have to do uh, international or global networking. And we we are a people of probably 1.8 billion thereabout worldwide. And so we have to make sure that we fund Black businesses by shopping with Black businesses, as you were just mentioning. We have to stop shopping with companies that are denying us economic opportunities, many of which were represented through DEI initiatives. We have to uh, get our students involved in discussions about the fact that Africa is their promised land, it's their future, and if they don't like what's going on with DEI, then they should be trying to find alternatives. And the best alternative, in my opinion, is the Africa that we're trying to build. So I don't think that we need to go on any further. If you have a closing comment, please make it. If not, I'm going to just ask our listeners to remember to like, subscribe, and make comments on our podcast so that we'll know what it is that's on your mind, and we can address some of those topics in our future discussions. Anything else you want to say, Darren, before we close it out?
No, I just think it's important for this moment in this movement to continue, and I want to do as much as I can. We need to be able to change the narrative about us as a culture, as a people. We don't even, in terms of especially this month, Black History Month, some of the greatest inventions that have been contributed to mankind came from Black people. I mean, Thomas Edison gets credit for the light bulb, but Lewis Latimer has the patent for the electrified carbon filament, which is the light bulb. We can go down the line with so many inventions that have been created by Black people, but yet the narrative is that all of this negative propaganda that's spewed about us as a culture. I mean, even to the point where they want to eliminate even what's in the school system now, is as far as Black history. We know, like I said, the depth and breadth of what was created by us. I mean, we can go down the line, and many people may not even know, but the time is now. And I think, as Dr. Arakana says, if we don't do it now, I don't know when it's going to happen. So I appreciate you doing the interview. I appreciate the work that you're doing. And let's just keep it moving forward and try to get as many people involved as possible. I'm hoping the people that do see this take a moment, share it, join the movement. Dr. Arakana, our ADDI.org. There's chapters all over the United States and international, and this is important. We need to develop this level of critical mass to keep the momentum growing and moving forward.
Well, I thank you again, and I'd just like to remind our audience that this is, in fact, the second civil rights movement, and we all need to be a part of it. So, with that being said, please like, share, and leave comments so that we can continue with what it is we're doing, and urge our students to have discussions centered around the rollback in DEI and the economic exploitation by neo-colonialists in Africa. Thank you so much, and we'll see you during our next video. Thank you. Have a good one.